Hey there, grade 8s. Welcome to today's lesson. We are going to be starting chapter 5 today, and the first lesson in chapter 5 is talking about fractions, decimals, and percents, and trying to compare them and relate them. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to kind of go through a couple things. So this lesson might be a little bit longer than normal, but a couple things that we're going to go over is when you have one, how can you find the other two that we're missing? Okay, so once again, what we're dealing with is we're dealing with fractions, decimals, and percents. Oops. Okay, so this is kind of what we're going to work with, and we're going to be transferring each of them from one to the next. So one thing that we want to keep in mind is when we're talking about percent. Okay, when we talk about percent, it means out of 100. Okay, out of 100. So if you're given something that's like 83%, for example, that means if that was what you got on a test and there was 100 questions, you got 83 out of 100 right on the test. Okay? Now, what if it wasn't necessarily out of 100? Well, we can take this percent and we can actually turn it into a fraction. So we can say 83 out of 100. So we can actually change it to a fraction right away. And then when we look at our fraction, we have 83 over 100, or we can also call that 83 hundredths, which would be 0.83. And I call it 83 hundredths because my 3 is in the hundredths place value. Okay, the hundredths place value. So as a reminder, when we're actually counting back, when we have our decimal, it goes tenths with a THS at the end. Then hundredths, then thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and millionths, and so on. Okay, so this is one thing that we, just as a reminder, this is what we do when we're changing one to the other. Okay, when we have a decimal, we look at the hundredths place value. We can place that over 100, for example. Once we get it to 100, whatever is over 100 is going to be what our fraction or our percent is. Okay, so we can go back and forth. So let's do a couple examples. Okay, so I'm going to start off with 3 different percentages, and then you can actually pause, and your goal is to find the fraction and the decimal. Okay, so we've got, let's go like this. We've got 7%, you've got 7.75%, sorry, that looks funny, 7.75%, and this is going to look funny, but 7.25%. Okay, so feel free to pause the video, try to put what is missing for your fraction and your decimal, and then hit play and we'll go over the answers. Okay, so for the first one, I have 7 out of 100, so that's going to be my decimal because percent means out of 100. Okay, I have 7 out of 100. Okay, when I change that to a decimal, okay, I'm going to have 700, so 0.07. Okay, 7 is in the hundredths place value. Okay, because technically there's nothing there. It's 7. If it was 17, then it'd be 0.17, but that's not what we have. Okay, so we're going to look over here. So now we have 7.75 out of 100. However, I can't keep a decimal in my fraction. So what do I have to do? I have to move my decimal place over twice, which means this bottom one has to move my decimal place over twice. So what do I end up getting? I have to add those 2 zeros. So I get 775 over 10,000. Okay? Now, when I look at my decimal, I can read this 775 10,000ths. Okay, so that's what I need to have. My 5, my last number, needs to be in the 10,000ths place value. So 0.0775. So when I'm counting, I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So my 5 is in the 10,000ths place. Okay, so this one I can also change to 7.25%, because that's what 1/4 is. Okay, so I'm going to have 7.25 out of 100. Okay. Once again, similar to my last question, I need to move my decimal over. Okay, so I need to move it over 2 places, so I need to move this decimal over 2 places, which means I'm adding 2 zeros, so 725 over 10,000. Okay? I'm not worried about reducing anything right now, although like I obviously could, but I'm just trying to show you exactly what we can get to. Then I'm going to have my 725 over 10,000, so 725 10,000ths. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. Okay? If I wanted to reduce these, if I'm looking at this one, I could reduce both of these by a factor of 25, which would end up giving me 31 over 400. And then for this one, I can reduce it by a factor of 25 as well, and that gives me 29 over 400. All right, so that was the first example when we're starting with percentages. Now, what if we start with a decimal? What if we start with a decimal? Okay, well, let's see what we can do. I'm going to give you 3 decimals once again. Your goal is to find the, fractions. I'm going to give you 3 fractions. So if I've got 5 over 8, and I've got 5 over 6, and 5 over 1,000. Okay? You need to find for me the percentage and the fraction, and the, percentage and the decimal. Okay? So, I can use a calculator if I wanted. I would go 5 divided by 8. That's going to give me 0.625. Okay? Oops, 625. So when I'm finding a decimal from a fraction, I'm just taking this top number and dividing it by the bottom number. Similar to how the division sign actually looks like a fraction. It's a number, a line, and then another number. The dots are just representing numbers. So when we think about division, 5 divided by 8, it's the same as saying 5 over 8. It's the same operation. Okay? The division sign is actually saying, is showing us a fraction. Okay? So if I have 0.625, okay, and I need to try to calculate what it is as a decimal, as a percent, I can turn this back into a fraction and get it over 100. So right now I'm going to get 625 over 1,000, and then to find out what it's going to be for my percent, I need to have it over 100. So I need to bring this over. Okay? So if I get rid of this, and then my decimal comes here, I'm left with 62.5 out of 100, because that's what a percent is. So my percentage becomes 62.5. This is the only time I'm ever going to be okay with you having a decimal in your fraction. Okay. All right. So for the next one, what we're going to get here is if we do the calculation. So 5 divided by 6, you're going to get 0.8. And then 3 repeating. That's what the line means. It means the 3 goes on over and over and over and over again. All right? So, what am I going to have? I can't really put it as a decimal, a fraction. I guess I could. It would be 83.3 repeating over 100, which means my percentage is going to be, now that I have it over 100, so I had this in the hundreds place value, is going to be 83.3 repeating percent. Okay, so that repeating doesn't really change. Okay, for the next one, here we go. I'm going to move this into, if I do the calculations, I'm going to get 0.005. Okay, 5 divided by 10,000, or 5 10,000ths, so my 5 is in the, 5,000ths, my 5 is in the thousands place value. Okay? Now, if I want to have it over 100, if I look at this fraction, I'd move my decimal place over 1. So I'd get 0.5 over 100. Okay, if I move my decimal over 1 here, and I move my decimal over 1 here. Okay, what I do to the top, I have to do the bottom. It has to be fair. So I get 0.5 out of 100, so that means my percentage is 0.5%. Okay, 0.5%. when it's 5 out of 1,000. Okay, we're going to do one more, and then this will be the last one. Actually, no, that should be good. The last one that we would do is a word problem, but I'll actually save that word problem for when we're together. This lesson has been pretty long. Make sure you check out the homework. This might be a little bit confusing for some people, but we're going to try to do lots and lots and lots of practice just to try to get you used to converting one to the next and to the other. Okay? If you have any individual questions, make sure you reach out to me through Hangouts or bring your questions to the Zoom. Good luck.